Let's talk about the money trap and the debt trap that is enforced on us and the financial tricks that many in the diaspora suffer from and that keeps us stuck in the West and even worse, keeps us away from tapping into the wealth that the African continent offers. I know many people have this problem, including myself back then. I desperately wanted to leave Europe, Germany to be precise, the country that I was born and raised in. But I was scared, number one. And secondly, I didn't have the financial means. And no matter how hard I worked, I'm sure so many of you can relate, right? No matter how much jobs I took, I was trapped. I was stuck. And so today in this video, we will speak about the 10 mistakes that we make, that you can make, right? To strengthen the chains that keep us stuck. And the reason why I'm framing it this way, because last week I asked ChatGPT, I gave ChatGPT the following prompt. Let me share it with you real quick. I asked ChatGPT to pretend to be the devil and what psychological, financial, and bureaucratic tricks it would use to keep the Black diaspora living in the West from relocating and investing in Africa. And it exposed really every vicious trick used to keep the Black diaspora away from Africa and stuck in the West. And so, if you have missed it, 2 days ago I made a live stream where we talked specifically about the psychological tricks, and I flipped them one by one because I've posted this video as a reel with the response of ChatGPT, which I will share with you in a minute. And even though it's crazy, because even though we all know how we are being trapped and who the devil is, right? It was still shocking to read it, to read the response, right? And I think so many people could relate. And I think that is also a reason why this was a shocking moment for many, though not a surprising moment. And so many people commented and asked me, now please revert it, flip it for us, show us the way out. And that is what I decided to do live. And I decided to do it in an interactive way. That's why I chose a live stream as I believe the right format, because fam, it's all hands on deck, right? And I really want everyone to participate. If you're watching, let me know from where you're watching. Share your experience, your knowledge, and I will try to create a roadmap out of this, an exit plan. And so again, last 2 days ago we spoke about the psychological tricks. And if you've missed the video, check it out. It's really helpful because it's always in most of the cases that the fact that the mindset is key. The right mindset, having the right mindset, building the right mindset is basically the foundation towards building success. And so in today's video, we will be particularly speaking about the financial tricks, and then I will flip them for you, read each sentence for you, and then flip them. And what I love to do if I want to solve a problem, if I want to achieve something, is I like to use the inversion thinking method. And the reason why I love to use the inversion thinking method is because when you flip a problem around, right, instead of asking how, in this context now of this video today, how can I escape the debt trap in the West and start investing on the African continent. Instead, I flipped the question around and asked how to stay stuck and broke in the West. And so the reason why this is so helpful, I use this method in so many aspects of my life, right? Relationships, businesses, raising children, right? It's because our brains are rewired in a way that it's much easier for us to identify problems rather than finding solutions. And so, in the same way, oftentimes, many of us, we don't know exactly what we want, but we know for sure what we don't want in life, right? And so, it's the same principle that we are using. Let's go, fam. Let's go. I would say, let's not waste any time. Let me read the response for you that ChatGPT gave me. And yeah, it's will not be surprising for many of you. If I were the devil, I would weave my tricks not with fire and brimstone, but with chains that cannot be seen. Here's how I would keep the black diaspora trapped in the West away from Africa. Psychological tricks. I would whisper doubts in their minds, teaching them that Africa is dangerous, chaotic, and hopeless. I would feed them endless images of poverty, war, and instability, never showing them the innovation, beauty, or resilience. I would glorify the comfort of the West, convincing them that leaving behind their jobs, their security, their pensions would be reckless. I would make them fear failure, ridicule, and the judgment of their families. Above all, I would make them believe that their power, their future, and their dignity are tied to staying where they are. Financial tricks. I would entangle them in golden chains, student loans, mortgages, car payments, credit card debt. I would lure them with consumerism so they never accumulate the capital to invest elsewhere. And when some of them managed to save, I would flood them with stories of scams, corruption, and collapsed businesses in Africa, so they clutch their money tightly instead of planting it in their ancestral soil. Meanwhile, I would keep Western currencies strong and and African currencies weak, so that every step toward investing in Africa looks like a bad financial decision. Bureaucratic tricks. I would ensure Africa's system remain intentionally complex. Endless paperwork, unclear laws, sudden policy changes, and officials who can stall progress for months. I would make permits, land titles, and licenses labyrinths that exhaust even the boldest dreamers. I would let corruption fester so that diaspora feels unwelcome and unsafe. At the same time, I would design visa rules and residency permits in the West that make leaving feel like burning a bridge they can never cross again. The ultimate purpose, listen up. Why would I enforce these tricks? Because the greatest threat to my dominion is a unified and empowered Africa. If the diaspora returned with their skills, capital, and knowledge, they would awaken the sleeping giant of a continent rich in resources, culture, and youth. Africa would rise, self sufficient and unstoppable, no longer dependent on Western systems I control. By keeping the diaspora divided, distracted, and distant, I preserve the flow of Africa's wealth outward and keep her children serving foreign empires. My purpose is simple: maintain domination, prevent liberation, and ensure that Africa never fulfills her destiny as the cradle of true power. Again, many were shocked, however, not surprised, right? And so I decided to today we will speak about, as I said, is the second part of this three-part series where we speak about the financial tricks and moreover how to break free from these golden chains, how to break free from the tricks and the traps that the devil in this script, right? It's the devil. We know the devil is manifests itself in several forms, right? Systems, governments, and what have you. And so we will talk about how to break free, revert them, flip them, find solutions. And I've identified by going through this paragraph about the financial tricks 10 major mistakes that you can make, that you are making, that keep you broke and keep you stuck in the West, that make it so difficult to escape the debt trap, the money trap, and invest and build generational wealth on the African continent. So let me know, fam, where are you watching from? Who's online? Why you don't go to Arab Gulf state, China, India? Why? I don't understand this question. Why would I go to the Arab Gulf states? And except of India, I've been to these regions, countries. Maybe good for business, but that's not where I feel I belong to. Good morning from Seattle. Good morning. It's evening here and I'm in Nairobi. Greetings to Houston, Texas. All right, fam. So let me know, share your thoughts. How do you feel about this? Like, which line felt most personal to you and why? Let's talk specifically about the financial tricks. Which exact line felt like it was written about you? Like, do you also feel trapped? And just to make sure again, right, that I'm grabbing the right audience here, this video is for all of those who live in the diaspora, who are tired of living in the West, who feel stuck, who feel like the system is keeping them broke, who feel like they, no matter how much they work, no matter how hard they try, they feel hopeless, exhausted, and they have the dream to relocate to the African continent and invest in the African continent. So this video is not for those who um, don't believe in the African continent or who believe that, I don't know, Germany, Sweden, America, whatever is their country, their ancestral soil. Like, you need much more help that we cannot, that I cannot offer you. So yeah, just to make sure that you know who's this video for. So now what I'm going to do is I want to take each line of this script, right? And I will try, as I said, invert them into practical moves and actionable steps, solutions, so you can basically start today, right? And plan your journey to building financial wealth in Africa today. Let's start with the first two sentences because they entail, I see the mistakes, they are related to these two sentences. I would entangle them in golden chains, student loans, mortgages, car payments, credit card debt. I would lure them with consumerism so they never accumulate the capital to invest elsewhere. So, the first mistake that I'm seeing here, if that is you, if you feel like it's written about you, right? That you are entangled in golden chains, that you spend money on fancy things, right? And consume, like you are buying fancy goods and fancy cars or things like that. The mistake number one that I see here is you prioritize looking rich over being rich. And that includes the mistake that you chase status symbols like designer clothes, fancy cars, luxury travels, expensive sneakers. And you do this to prove success, to others. The second mistake that I see here is you believe that if you were a designer, if you drive a fancy car and post that lifestyle, right, and these material things, that people will respect you, that people will look up to you. And now let's flip these two mistakes and look what we should do instead, if that speaks to you. And I'm not innocent. I used to have a similar mindset, but I will get to that later. Instead, I think the first thing that we should do is reflect and ask ourselves honestly, what does success or being rich mean to you? And this is a very personal question because everyone defines the meaning of success and being rich in a different way. Because the way we define success and being rich is oftentimes shaped by our life experience, by our past, by the way we grew up, how we were raised, right? And so, yeah, you have to ask yourself this question. And also, you should ask yourself, does the way that the society that I'm living in, right? And I assume you're living in the West, in Germany, Europe in general, or in the States, where success is often defined and measured by material things, by how much money you have, by how many followers you have, by how many likes you get, by how many cars you drive, how expensive your car is, how big your house is. So ask yourself, does the way that the society that I'm living in, does the way they define success align with my own personal values? And that's so important because oftentimes we give away the power and let external forces, external powers define what success means to us. And so, yeah, you should really start by that. And most of the time, when you ask people, what does success and being rich mean to you? Most of the time, the answer is having freedom. However, freedom also here in this case looks different for everyone. For some, it's having the freedom to buy whatever you want. For others, it's having the freedom to travel. For others, it's having the freedom to be there and spend time with my family, right? And yeah, so this is why I'm saying it's very personal. For me, to me personally, success also means freedom, but the way I define freedom is simple. It's by, for me, success, in addition, freedom means the freedom of building a life where I can do both, achieve my goals while at the same time living out my values, not one thing at the expense of the other. So, and that is like, for instance, includes working in Africa and in service for Africans, uplifting others, having the freedom to give, to share, and also like this includes also helping the African diaspora, right? Gives me a sense of purpose that no Western paycheck ever would. And also, and that is also very personal, to me, freedom is being able to be present for my children. And that's why I mean, I don't want to chase my dreams and try to achieve my goals, right? And sacrifice or do this at the expense of not being present for my children. And the reason why this is so important for me is because when I grew up, my mother was working from day to night. I had no one who would come to my sports matches. I would go alone to school at the age of 6, cook my own meals by the age of 8, right? So I was missing a present parent, and I know that my mom did her best, right? And she did it well. She was trying to take care. She has so many responsibilities as the only person from our family to have made it abroad. She had the responsibility for all her siblings living in Ethiopia and in Eritrea, right? But yeah, I that is something that I missed, and yeah, that was painful sometimes. And because of that, for me, success meant if I'm able when I'm able to be at home when my children come from school, when they go to school, be able to attend all their celebrations, matches, and other important things in their life, milestones in their life. And then also, what freedom and being rich to me means is raising kind, confident children who know their history, who are proud of their history. And so, for me, this life is here in Africa. And it doesn't matter whether I'm financially not where I want to be yet. I'm not where I want to be yet financially, but waking up every day knowing that I'm doing the work that matters, right? And I'm working on my own dream. I'm working on building something real, something meaningful that also helps others, right? In the diaspora and Africans on the ground, while at the same time being present as a parent, right? This is for me freedom. This is for me, I feel I'm rich. And so, yeah, you should ask yourself that. The second thing that you have to ask yourself is, and that you should reflect on, is why am I actually craving external validation from strangers? Because, and I get it. And I'm not innocent, as I said, as a teenager, especially. Like many others, we have the urge to flex and seek external validation, especially the diaspora who grew up poor and with less, because it's it's a sign to prove I made it. I deserve respect, right? So nobody wants to fall behind, whether it's like a trend in when I was going to secondary school and everyone was having these fancy Nike sneakers, I wanted to have them too, right? So But the thing is, what we have to reflect on is the underlying issue below this urge to seek external validation, and the trying to flex cars, sneakers, and all these material things. And this usually comes from a place of, and that's the hard truth, from a place of low self-esteem and insecurity. And so that's also not surprising, because when you look at the age we are living in, we are in the age of social media, right? Where everyone is flexing, right? And you see others when you scroll, they're traveling the world, living their best lives, people much younger than you, making much more money, making millions, And of course, this has the effect that some people, when they see that, may feel less worthy, right? And even feel like a failure. And so I honestly, I felt like that also. I felt like a failure sometimes, seeing that young people are making billions, having made smart investments into cryptocurrency. And I would ask myself, damn, why didn't I start sooner? Why didn't I invest in Bitcoins earlier? And yeah, like I would, yeah, feel ashamed even about that. Felt like I'm behind. I don't know. Let me know if you also ever felt like this. And so, but again, I'm saying, what I'm trying to say you is, don't put yourself down because of that. You are not crazy. You are not behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be. And this is very important. And they say the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, the next best time is now. So don't put yourself down. Understand that you are acting, and you know um, the relationship that you have with money is shaped by your past, by the way you grow up, your childhood, your environment. And also, on top of that, the reality is, and I think most of us know that, oftentimes what we see on social media is fake. Some of these people who like show this beautiful lifestyle, happy life, fancy life, rich life, they are actually pretty miserable people. And some of them are extremely unhappy and feel empty every day. And I made that exact experience when I was hosting in Addis Ababa. I had my Airbnb there. And I once hosted a content creator who had a lot of followers on social media. And we were getting along well, doing some things outside, sometimes together, going out together, a beautiful young lady. But she was so unhappy because she wanted to have a child desperately, because she was also, yeah, getting, she was feeling a time pressure. She was looking for a partner. And what she was doing basically, she didn't leave the bed in her bedroom until 12 a.m. because she was swiping on Tinder, you know? And then one day I remember she came out and she said, oh, I haven't posted in a while. Can you please take a picture of me? So she put her sportswear wear on, and then posed in my garden, with her gym wear, and then went straight back to her room. And so I saw with my own eyes the show that many people are making and how empty they feel inside. So you should not compare yourself to people in the internet, and define what success means to you by what they show you, or try to show you what success is. And in the end, really, real freedom comes when you build your value from within, and not longer depend on external valuation and validation. And like, really, real freedom is when you reach a level and a point in your life where you don't have to prove anything anymore to others, and surely not to strangers. Now, let's get to the next mistake that keeps you broke. Yeah. Number three, you spend your money for liabilities instead of investing in assets. And that's a lesson that my mom taught me early on in my early teenage years, because, as I said, I was trying to also, keep up. I didn't want to be the outsider. So I wanted to have the fancy new sneakers. I had my first job. I think I started working at the age of 13. Yes. Distributing newspapers. And with the money I got, I remember it so vividly. I would buy shoes, like so many sneakers. I would buy diesel jeans, all this fancy brands, expensive things. And I remember one time my mom, she snapped. She came into my room because I was also a little bit messy. All my clothes were, thrown over a chair, and there was like two more clothes than I needed. And she became so angry. She said, "What are you doing with your money? Why are you spending your money on these useless things? Haven't you learned anything from us, from our culture?" Because in our culture, what our mothers would do, whenever they're able to save something, we have a culture where our parents would invest in gold. They would buy gold because that is something she explained to me. She said, later on, what are you going to pass over to your children? Your children will not inherit your sneakers. They will not inherit your diesel jeans. They will inherit your assets or your debts. And that is what she taught me early on, to understand the difference between an asset and a liability. And for her, the best investment was investing in gold, because she would be able to resell it and also pass it on to her children, right? And so, yeah, that is the next big mistake that many of us make. You spend your money for liabilities instead of investing in assets. Now, to just explain a little bit what the difference is, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Okay, it drains your wealth, and it costs you money, and either immediately or over a period of time. And this includes examples like these things that I was talking about: fancy shoes, sneakers, consumer goods in general, designer clothes, then car loans and car payments. Because the moment you drive your car, it already lost its value. And then credit card debts, unless you use the credit card, the debt, as a tool to invest in an asset, which then eventually increases an income that outweighs the debt. Okay, if that makes sense. A mortgage, yeah, that you struggle to pay without rental income, also like a house that you yourself that you are living in. And so instead, what you should do is invest in assets instead of spending your money for liabilities. Assets are things that put money into your pocket. Assets make you richer over time. For example, a property that pays you monthly income from rent, or that you can rent out on a short term rental basis. And that's basically what I'm doing. I started my Airbnb business in 2019, and the business model that I chose is, because there are many different ways to enter the game of the Airbnb business. I chose the rental arbitrage model. That means you don't own property, you rent properties, and then with the permission of your landlord, you list them on a short term rental basis on different platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBO. There are thousands of these platforms. Another asset is investing in a profitable business, right? I mean, this is the case also with the Airbnb business. In my case, these two things go together. A property that I transformed, a rental property that I transformed into a profitable business through rental arbitrage. Investment in stocks, cryptocurrencies, right? And land that increases its value over time. And that's exactly why in 2021, I invested in 2 plots on the island of Zanzibar. And somebody just recently offered me, I bought that piece of land for 10,000, around 10,000, a little bit less than $10,000. I was offered 35,000, and that's within 3 years. And also, last but not least, very, very important, intellectual property like books, courses, masterclasses. This is such a valuable asset, right? I invested thousands of euros in courses and masterclasses to learn a skill. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have a profitable Airbnb business with multiple home bases on the African continent. And this brings me basically to the next big mistake. Damn, it's getting late. Number 4, you don't invest in yourself. That's the fourth mistake. And I get it, because many have some built in fear, some sort of aversion towards spending money. And that has also to do with your past, right? And I get it because I was in your exact same shoes. In my childhood, we never had money. My mom was working as a cleaner. And, that's why whenever I got money, I hold it so tight, right? I spend it either on useless things like clothes, but investing in myself, hell no, right? And investing in an online course, I didn't see the value. That's the reason why. And later on, I realized, and that was in 2017 when I bought my first online course to start my Amazon business, right? There was a masterclass on fulfillment by Amazon, import, export, branding, marketing, all these things. And I realized before I bought this course that if I want to succeed in this capitalistic world, right, then I have to shift my mindset around what's really um, worth spending money on and what not. And I came to realize also that eventually, if I want to start or grow a business, I do eventually have to spend some sort of money. Yeah. There's no way around it. You have to spend some sort of money on it. So I bought the first course, as I said, and then later the Airbnb masterclass. And I treated it as even though I was scared in the beginning, but I was really confident. That's why I bought it, because I saw the value. And that's why I saw this not as an expense, but as an investment. And I knew that when I stay committed, right, it's all on me. Nobody can do the work for me. Then I will get the most value out of it. And so, and I'm going to tell you, really, that was the best decision of my life. I spent almost 1,000 for this first Airbnb masterclass that I took, and then immediately started with my first Airbnb property. Invested 10,000, and the return on investment was crazy. I got my money back in the first 3 months, after 3 months of hosting. And that is why, because of that experience, right, and because of seeing where that took me in my journey, right, from starting my first Airbnb, building financial freedom, expanding to other countries, the island of Zanzibar, that's changed also the way I see yeah, purchases. Whenever I buy something, I basically now treat things as an equation. If the value, right, I always ask myself, if the value and return of the thing, the course, masterclass, etc., that I want to buy is greater than the cost of purchasing it, then I'm buying it, then I'm purchasing it. If not, then not. It's that simple, right? It's all about understanding the value. And there's no greater value than investing into yourself, investing in a new skill, an income generating skill. And yeah, that's really, I even said to a friend of mine, that was like 3 months ago, that's crazy. Back then, I was scared to spend $1,000 on that masterclass. But if I knew back then what I know now, where this journey will take me, what this investment will bring, the return it will bring for me, I would have even spent 10,000 US dollars on this course, on this masterclass, because that's really what I'm in the first year. That's what I made in the first 6 months. Okay, after breaking even, and so that changed the way I see what is a good purchase. I could have never imagined, like just last month, I subscribed to a masterclass and course where I also got some books, right? I spent 6,000 US dollars on this masterclass. That would have been unthinkable. People would, who are not really, who don't see the value of investing yourself, would say you're done losing your mind. But I'm doing this because I'm confident and I know I gain so much more out of this than what I invested into this course, right? Imagine there are rich, wealthy entrepreneurs, millionaires. They have mentors with who they pay 30,000 US dollars, something 200,000 US dollars, right? To mentor them for one meeting. And it's crazy because I watched so many talks. Sometimes it's just one tip, one advice from this 2 hour long talk that changes the game for them. That's all they need. That was the missing link. to bring your business to the next level and scale. And so the solution is invest in yourself. That's the way forward. And I understand many just can't. I know people told me also, yeah, I would like to invest in an online course. I would even love to join your private community, but I I feel like I never have enough money in the end of the month, right? And I'm always broke. I have bills on bills on bills, and so that brings me to the next mistake, number five. You spend more than you earn. And instead, if we flip it, what you should do instead is start living below your means, spend less than you earn. And there are so many different ways you can do that, right? When you are at a point where you feel like stuck and you don't know what to do, how to escape the trap, the best advice that I can give is what helped me was each month, yeah, once you get your salary, before you pay your bills, before you pay rent, before you pay others, pay yourself, put aside a fixed amount every month, an amount that you can live with, right? An acceptable amount. You put it aside, and this amount will only be invested in yourself. You invest that amount in yourself every month to learn a new skill, right? An income generating skill. And that is the best way to escape the money trap when you have really nothing. Okay. Don't spend your money into Bitcoins, or because it will take time until they appreciate. You have to invest in your skills, in building new skills. And another amazing strategy to save money and live below your means is, I love the concept of geo arbitrage, which is, and that is, I know it's not possible for everyone, but let's say your company allows you to work remotely, right? Or you have your own business that you can run remotely. You make your money and you earn US dollars, euros, but then you move to a country where the cost of living is much lower. That way you are able to put aside much more money, save more money, right? Because the cost of living is lower, the rent is lower. And so, yeah, that's interesting, because when I was traveling the African continent for 8 months and I was sharing my journey on social media, people were assuming that I'm super rich, when in reality, what I was doing is I was doing geo arbitrage, right? I was, and I always made sure I'm spending less than I'm making. So every week I had a budget. I had my steady cash flow from my Airbnb business, right? I had my bookings, and then I knew, okay, this week I made 3,000 US dollars. I made 2,500 US dollars. So I'm not going to spend more than 50% of that. And so, yeah, we chose, normal accommodations, never anything fancy. I focused more on creating experiences, right? It's not that we stayed in shitty places, but I always made sure that I'm living below what I'm making every week on a weekly basis, because we were also traveling constantly. It was just, I think, in South Africa, yes, and in Zanzibar, where we stayed much longer. And yeah, so to sum it up, what you need to do is you need to prioritize building wealth, building wealth, right? And being rich, being successful, having freedom over looking rich. And also replace consumerism with a builder's mindset by investing in yourself, right? Now let's continue with the devil's script. And when some of them managed to save, I would flood them with stories of scams, corruption, and collapsed businesses in Africa. So they clutched their money tightly instead of planting it in their ancestral soil. The sixth mistake that I see here is you believe every story of scams and corruption in Africa, but ignore the same issues happening daily in the West. Yes, corruption is also happening in the West. People always act like that's something that is unique to Africa, right? And so, if we flip this mistake, I want you to look at the reality on the ground. Thousands of African entrepreneurs build profitable businesses daily, on a daily basis. And what you should do is you should visit, you should research, you should connect with these real and successful entrepreneurs on the ground, rather than letting Western mainstream media and fear mongers dictate your beliefs. Okay. And of course, you also always have to do, when you think of investing and starting a business, you need to do your due diligence, whether you're buying a piece of land, whether you're deciding for a lawyer, legal representative, you have to do your due diligence. Every country has risks, and it's important to do your research and understand where are the risks, where are the opportunities, right? And then go from there. The seventh mistake is you think in terms of fear. You think, what if I lose, instead of thinking in terms of opportunity, meaning thinking, what if I win, right? And so this fear, the problem with this fear mindset is that it paralyzes you into inaction, and and really, like, instead of making your money work for you, is nonsense. It makes no sense. And underlying this is, you have to understand that fear protects nothing. Really, I always say, be scared, have fear, but do it anyway. Of course, do it with strategy and clarity, but don't let fear get into your way. Fear is part of the process. And it's so important. You have to understand that capital must circulate to grow. The importance here is, start small, test, optimize, and then scale. I remember very well the first night when I slept in that Airbnb. I spent 10,000 US dollars on furnishing that place. I observed the masterclass, and I was lying in my bed sleepless, and I was so scared. I was like, what if it doesn't work out? And I heard, like, that's an experience and a feeling, an emotion that so many entrepreneurs go through when they invest into a new business, when they invest into a new office, a building, when they scale, right? Or, yeah, when they make a significant expense. But that's part of it. I think everyone has this fear who's starting a business. Luckily, 2 days later, I got my first booking, and yeah, I was so happy about that. And after that, bookings kept flowing in. Now, let's get to the last part of this paragraph, of this financial tricks from the devil's script. Meanwhile, I would keep Western currencies strong and African currencies weak, so that every step toward investing in Africa looks like a bad financial decision. Mistake number 8 here. You believe Western currencies will stay strong forever. I think you didn't get the memo. Even the US dollar has fallen by record levels in 2025. And every year, inflation, right, quietly eats away your savings on your bank account. That's what it is. So the solution is, what you should do instead is, don't park your wealth, all your wealth, in a currency that is steadily devaluing. Instead, you should use some of that money to invest in assets, especially on the African continent. We are talking about building generational wealth in Africa today, right? So you choose a country, and I made a nice video about how to choose the right country, right? You should check it out. You should buy land, right? Invest in real estate or businesses in Africa that actually grow in value over time. Mistake number 9, you see a weak African currency and think it equals a weak investment. Now, the thing is, even if the US dollar has been devaluing, right? Even then, a weak African currency makes your dollar stronger. That means also it lets you buy land or start a business in Africa at a much, much lower entry cost. Okay. And so over time, these assets that you invested in, right? Whether it's like the business that you started, or whether it's land that you bought, it will most definitely and without a doubt grow up in value, while the US dollar, right, your savings on your bank account, while they go down. And so that's what you should do. The 10th mistake that I can read here in between the lines that many of us are making, and that keep us broke and stuck in the West, is you treat Africa as one country instead of 54 diverse nations. So you need to study the region separately, because there are some economies that are strong and booming, and some struggle, of course, right? Even, like, for instance, let's take Ethiopia, where the tourism industry is greatly suffering due to the political instability and the armed violence that is happening in many regions, right? In the popular tourist destinations. While in Tanzania, the tourism industry is booming. Morocco hit a record, right? Zanzibar hit a record in July with almost 100,000 visitors in just 1 month. And so, yeah, you see, it really depends on the region. And so you should never write off an entire continent because of one headline. So this is basically how you have been programmed to stay broke in the West and stay away from tapping into the wealth and the immense opportunities that the African continent offers. This is how they keep you broke. And that's why I always say life in Europe and in the US is a scam. It's really a scam. I just came back from Germany, and it was so hard and painful to watch how people are struggling with groceries and how prices are going up, prices for energy, right? For fuel, and while the salary stays the same. And then people are being distracted every day with nonsense, with nonsense, fear mongering, with they spend money on insurance, right? And they use this strategy of creating fear. What if this happens? You need an insurance for this, you need an insurance for that. Insane. It's absolutely insane. And so understand that even though the devil works 24/7, works overtime, right? To keep you stuck and broke. You have a choice. You have choices and you have agency. You're not a passive human being. You just need the right information, and not just the information, you need to take action. Okay? That's the most important thing, because all the information does you no service when you stay paralyzed, when you allow others to, when you allow fear to put you into inaction. So I hope this was very helpful for you. At least this is what worked for me, what helped me to break free from this trap in Europe, in Germany, right? And now slowly but surely building a profitable business and generational wealth, raising happy children, children that are being loved, valued, seen, and appreciated here on the African continent, surrounded by people that look like them. And yeah, I am rich. I give thanks and praise to God every day. I have food on the table. I have a beautiful apartment. I have a home in Ethiopia. When I want to go to Zanzibar, assets that are a home for me and my family, while at the same time also creating income and a steady cash flow. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments, ask your questions. Unfortunately, I have to leave now because we have a group call with my private community now of investors, Airbnb investors in the African continent. If you're interested, check out the link in the description below. I will also pin it in the comments where you can see what we are doing. It's a space of like minded entrepreneurs, people in the diaspora who are on the same journey of building a profitable Airbnb business and a home base on the African continent. It's a space where we empower each other, where we support each other, share our knowledge and experience with each other. Really a place where and a space where people believe in you even if you don't believe in yourself, because there's this African proverb. I love it, really. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so, yeah, that's why I built this community. And yeah, that's why I have to go to my tribe now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you in the next video. Bye.